I didn't mean to go that deep. It was supposed to be a simple thrill, a way to satisfy my curiosity, and then I'd be out. That's what I kept telling myself when I first stumbled across the link, buried deep in the abyss of the dark web, where things that no sane person should ever see lurk. I had heard the rumors, whispers of forbidden treasures, secret auctions, and illicit transactions, but it was the mystery of one particular page that drew me in. It wasn't a typical marketplace for illegal goods, nor was it a site offering disturbing videos. No, this page was different. It was a simple text, with nothing more than a link that read, "Do you want to see something real?" That's all it said. Intrigued and maybe a little too eager, I clicked. The page took a while to load. The screen flickered like a dying bulb before finally presenting an image, a full-length mirror, but not like any mirror I had ever seen. The glass was cracked, spider-web, with blackened streaks running down the edges. It was framed in what looked like ancient, twisted wood, and the reflections in it were wrong. The figures were blurry, distorted, like something trying to escape from the other side. I could almost swear that the longer I stared, the more I saw within the reflection, faces, half-formed and flickering, shadows that moved against the flow of light. My heart thudded harder in my chest, but I couldn't look away. Beneath the mirror, there was a single line of text. "It can show you what you want, but can you survive it?" The shiver ran down my spine. I wasn't sure what that meant, but the message tugged at something deep within me, an irresistible pull to find out more. I clicked again. The page shifted, and this time, there was a new image. A video was loading. The title above it read, "A Glimpse into Your Future." The preview frame was static, just a pitch-black screen. I hesitated. I had heard about the manipulation of these types of videos, how they could mess with your mind, distort your perceptions, maybe even trigger something deep in your psyche. But something inside me, something dark, urged me to continue. I clicked on the video. The screen remained black for a long time before it flickered to life. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a figure appeared, distant at first, as if slowly emerging from the depths of the mirror. It was me. Or, at least, it looked like me. The figure stood there, motionless, in front of a cracked, old mirror, just as the one on the page. The reflection of me stared back with hollow eyes, but there was something wrong. The figure in the reflection was different. It smiled, no, grinned, widely, unnaturally. Its lips stretched too far, the teeth too sharp. I froze. The video played on, the figure in the mirror walking closer, until it was almost nose to nose with me. I tried to look away, but my gaze was fixed, locked into that grin, into the gleam in its eyes that seemed to mock me. Suddenly, the reflection lifted its hand, and with a slow, deliberate motion, it pressed its palm against the glass. As it did, I felt an odd, sinking sensation in my stomach. The screen seemed to warp and distort, and a cold mist washed over me. My hands grew clammy, my breath shallow. The reflection on the screen began to move independently. It wasn't mimicking me anymore. It was doing something else. It moved its head slightly, its eyes narrowing as if noticing me, seeing me, aware of my presence. The reflection's grin widened even further, and then, it reached out. I jumped back from my screen, knocking over my chair in a panic, but the image remained. That horrible thing, that thing that looked like me, was still there, staring at me. It pressed its hand against the screen, its fingers curling into the glass as though it were trying to escape. In a blur of confusion, I reached to close the browser. My fingers trembled, the mouse hovering over the X at the top right of the screen, but I couldn't make myself click. It was like some invisible force was holding me in place. Then, from behind me, I heard a sound. A whisper, faint but clear, as though it was right in my ear. "You can't escape." I whirled around, heart racing, but there was nothing there. No one. The room was still and silent. I looked back at the screen. The figure in the mirror was no longer static. It had stepped out from behind the cracked glass and into my room. My room? It was standing in the corner, its eyes locked on mine, its mouth stretching wider, its hands curling into claws, its smile impossibly wide. I could feel its gaze on me, its presence suffocating the very air around me. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My body refused to move, paralyzed by the terror that had gripped me. Suddenly, it spoke, its voice low, guttural. "You let me in." In a panic, I grabbed my phone and tried to disconnect from the internet. I pulled the power cord from my laptop and unplugged the modem, but the figure was still there, just behind the mirror, staring at me. The screen went black, but I could still feel its eyes, burning through the darkness. I ran. But no matter where I went, no matter how far I moved, I could feel it following me. In the reflection of every glass surface, windows, doors, even a puddle of water on the floor, I saw it. The thing that looked like me, watching, waiting, its smile widening with each passing second. And now, as I sit here, in the pitch black of my room, alone, I know it's only a matter of time before it steps fully into this world. Because I can still hear its voice, a whisper in the dark. You will never leave. I don't know how much longer I have, but I'm not clicking any links again. It started as a curiosity, like any dark web adventure. Chris had been drawn in by the whispers on underground forums, stories of places where the law didn't reach, where anything could be bought and sold. After months of careful searching, he'd stumbled upon a website that piqued his interest, silentauction.com. It was simple, minimalistic, just a black screen with a timer counting down in the corner. Below the timer were a few cryptic lines of text. Welcome to the silent auction. What you bid on, stays hidden until it arrives. No one knew how the auction worked. No one knew who ran it, or who the buyers were. But there were rumors, people could win anything they wanted, anything. He'd seen people claim to have bought rare artifacts, art, weapons, and even drugs. But one thing stood out in every conversation, in every whisper: some of the highest bids were for people. Chris didn't take it seriously at first. He'd read about snuff films, dark trafficking rings, and all manner of grotesque things on the web. It was easy to dismiss it as more fantasy. But then, on one sleepless night, he saw something that froze him. A new auction popped up, labeled with a simple, chilling phrase. Current lot, human subject, minimum bid, $500,000. A photo accompanied the listing. It was a woman, bound and blindfolded, her face pale and vacant. No other details. No name. No background. Just a number, lot 37. Chris's hand hovered over his mouse. He didn't want to be a part of this, but something in him couldn't look away. The timer counted down. 5 hours left. In the dead of night, he thought about it. He convinced himself it was a joke, probably an elaborate hoax, a staged photo. But the darker side of his mind wondered, what if it wasn't? He clicked on the auction and entered the dark, hollow interface of the bidding system. The screen was blank except for the option to place a bid. He could barely breathe. The minimum bid was beyond his financial reach, but the concept of owning a person, even in a metaphorical sense, was too intriguing to ignore. The minutes ticked by, the timer growing smaller. Something in the back of his mind warned him to walk away. But that temptation, that sick thrill of the unknown, was overpowering. He entered a bid of $100,000. It was ludicrous, a mockery of the high-stakes game that was being played, but Chris thought it'd make him feel better. Like he wasn't part of it, just an observer. The bid counter jumped immediately. New bid, $200,000. His heart skipped. A real-time update. No way could someone have seen it so quickly. The auction was alive. Real. 4 hours left. Chris leaned back, sweating now. He tried to push the thoughts from his mind. He was just going to watch. Just see where it went. But deep down, he had already crossed the line. There was no turning back. His phone buzzed. Alert, new bid, $500,000. It wasn't him. Someone else had already eclipsed his bid. He checked the time. 3 hours left. Then came another notification. A new link was posted in the chat, a private, encrypted message. His curiosity got the better of him. He clicked. The screen flickered, and there it was, a video feed. The woman from the auction was in a dimly lit room, her face swollen from crying. She was kneeling, shaking, her eyes wide with terror. A voice broke through the static. Look, huh? You wanted to see what happens, didn't you? What happens when the bids rise too high? Welcome to the next phase, Chris. His blood ran cold. He tried to close the window, but it wouldn't respond. The video continued to play, a loop of her terrified expression. Then, the sound, footsteps from behind her. A figure appeared, cloaked in shadow, and they approached her with slow, deliberate steps. A scream, a metallic clink. Then the video went black. 2 hours left. Chris's pulse pounded in his ears as he sat frozen in his chair. He closed the tab, but every time he blinked, the images came flooding back. His hands were shaking. He was sick. There was no way to unsee what he'd just watched. But as the time ticked on, a thought gnawed at him. The temptation wasn't gone. The urge to know more, to follow the trail further, it was overwhelming. It wasn't the money. It wasn't the person. It was the power. Another notification. A new message. Congratulations, Chris. You've been chosen. Your bid has been accepted. Before he could react, his phone buzzed again, this time with an address. You have 24 hours to arrive. Chris was about to close everything, shut down his computer, burn the device, leave the house, never look back, but then, one final message appeared on the screen. You've already made your bid. There's no turning back now. His body moved before his mind could stop it. He grabbed his jacket, running out the door into the cold, his thoughts in a blur. The address led him to a nondescript building in a warehouse district. It was abandoned, no signs, no lights. Just a steel door with a single lock. He stood there, frozen. Everything inside him screamed for him, but that sick, twisted curiosity gnawed at his insides. The door creaked open when he pushed it. Inside, the air was thick, cold, and smelled faintly of irony. And then, as his eyes adjusted to the dim light, he saw it. Rows upon rows of pages. There were people, men, women, children, locked inside. Their eyes wide with fear, desperation, silent. He realized, too late, that his bid hadn't been for someone else. It had been for him. The auction ended without a sound. The timer counted down to 0, and then the site vanished from the dark web, as if it had never existed at all. And in the place of the former Lot 37, a new listing appeared. Lot 38, Chris. Minimum bid, $500,000. It started as an innocent curiosity. Luke and Greg had always been into the darker corners of the internet, the kind of places that weren't supposed to be found unless you knew exactly where to look. For years, they had dabbled in hacking, exploring old forums, and digging through files buried deep within the dark web. They had a rule: always stay anonymous, always cover your tracks, and always be careful not to go too far. But then, one night, it happened. Greg had stumbled upon a link, one that wasn't like the others. It wasn't a website or a forum, it was just a series of cryptic characters, with no explanation, no title, just a string of numbers and letters. It looked like code, something an automated bot might generate. Greg had been playing with encryption for fun, so he'd recognized the structure immediately. Luke was skeptical. Don't open it, man. It's probably some kind of honeypot or malware. But Greg, ever the curious one, was already typing furiously, entering the string into his terminal. It's just a link, Luke. What's the worst that could happen? The page that loaded was unsettling. There was no design, no text, just a black screen with a countdown timer ticking down. The numbers blinked ominously, as though they were taunting them. 72 hours remaining. The countdown was the only thing on the page. Beneath it, a simple message appeared. Your presence has been noted. The offer is valid for 72 hours. After that, it expires. Greg clicked on it without hesitation. A new page opened, and this time, there was a form. It asked for basic information: name, age, location, profession. Then, a section that was more cryptic. What would you do for $10,000? The question lingered in the air, both absurd and intriguing. Greg hesitated for a moment before typing, anything. Luke snorted. What the hell is this, man? Some sick game. Greg didn't answer at first. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, but then he added, I'm in. I'll do it. Just to see what happens. The page changed again. A new message appeared. You have been accepted. Wait for instructions. Greg looked up at Luke, his face pale. I don't know, man. This feels wrong. Luke stared at the screen, feeling a cold shiver crawl down his spine. We're not getting involved in whatever this is. You need to delete it. Now. But Greg, despite his usual caution, seemed transfixed. There was something about it, something about the way the page seemed to know things, something that drew him in like a moth to the flame. He was almost hypnotized by it. I'm just going to see what happens. It's not like I'm doing anything illegal, right? Before Luke could protest further, Greg hit a key, and suddenly the screen went black. A message flashed in bright red text. You've been selected. The next day, everything went wrong. Greg was missing. Luke woke up to an empty apartment, a cold cup of coffee on the counter, and a door that had been left slightly ajar. Greg's phone was gone. His laptop, too. But there was something else, a small, folded piece of paper on the coffee table, written in Greg's familiar handwriting. I made a mistake. Don't follow. It's too late. Luke's heart skipped a beat. His mind raced. He tried calling Greg's phone, but there was no answer. He sent text after text, but they went unread. Greg was gone. Just vanished. Panicking, Luke ran to Greg's place, hoping for some clue as to what had happened. The apartment was eerily quiet, but nothing seemed out of place at first glance. Then, in the corner of Greg's bedroom, Luke saw something that made his blood run cold. Greg's computer was on, the screen still glowing in the dark. Luke approached cautiously, and the screen flickered to life. It was the same link, the one from the night before, but now, the page was different. Congratulations. Your friend is now part of the offer. Payment will be made after the transaction is complete. The words made no sense. Luke's hand trembled as he clicked the link. Another page loaded, this time showing a live feed. Greg was in a dimly lit room, bound to a chair. His face was bruised, eyes wide with terror. His mouth was gagged. In the background, there was a low murmur of voices. Luke's heart pounded in his chest. What was happening? He tried to call the police, but when he looked back at the screen, the page had changed again. A new message flashed. You are now the next participant. Don't worry, your payment is secure. You just need to follow the instructions. A countdown began, just like the one from the night before. This time, there were no questions, no options, only a timer, ticking down to 0. 72 hours remaining. Luke's breath came in shallow gasps. He wanted to close the computer, to run, to scream, but he couldn't tear his eyes away from the screen. He knew he had to do something. He had to find Greg, had to fix this before it was too late. But how? The page refreshed, showing a message that made Luke's blood run cold. You have 12 hours to comply. If you do not, your friend will become part of the auction. The night that followed was a blur of fear and desperation. Luke found himself sinking deeper into the twisted world of the dark web, searching frantically for any clue that could lead him to Greg. But every site he visited, every link he followed, only seemed to pull him deeper into a web of darkness. He was no longer just looking for Greg. He was being hunted. By morning, he received another message from the site. The countdown had ticked down, and now there was a new directive. The offer expires in 6 hours. If you do not respond, Greg will be sold to the highest bidder. We suggest you act quickly. Luke's stomach churned. He stared at the clock. Time was running out. The message didn't say how to stop the auction, didn't say how to save Greg. There were no instructions, only the haunting reminder that he was too late. Then, as the timer hit 0, the page refreshed one last time. A live auction feed appeared on the screen. It was Greg, still bound, still terrified, his eyes wide with fear. But now, there was a number beneath him. Starting bid, $500,000. Luke's world shattered. His mind raced as he tried to make sense of what he was seeing. The auction was real. The buyers were real. They were bidding on Greg's life, on his body, on his soul. And Luke had no way to stop it. The numbers on the screen ticked up. $600,000. $700,000. Luke's fingers shook as he hovered over the keyboard, his mind a blur of desperation. But it was too late. As the auction hit its final bid, the screen went black. A final message appeared. Thank you for participating. Greg is now sold. The next morning, Luke received the final notification. It was a single sentence. Your payment is now processing. And as the dark web vanished into the shadows, Luke realized there was no escape, no way to bring Greg back. The auction had ended. But somewhere, someone had purchased Greg, someone had taken him, and Luke was left to face the cold, harsh truth. There was no going back.